Hi, my name is Keith Jackson. I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the Dean of College Creative Arts at West Virginia University. If this was any other year, we'd be gathered together in the lovely Lillie, Valerie, and William Kennedy Creative Arts Center. But 2020 is not like any other year. And here in the College of Creative Arts, we have learned that we are going to adapt, and we're going to bring the adaptive process to our students and the community. In that spirit, we are bringing you a new offering, the Pandemic Proof Artist Series. Before we get going, I would like to thank our partners, the Reed College of Media and Dean Diana Martinelli, West Virginia University Career Services Director David Durham for their help in bringing this wonderful idea to fruition. There were also lots of people behind the scenes who really make this possible, including Shannon Cunningham from the Reed College of Media, Julie Black from the Teaching and Learning Commons, and Octavia Spriggs from the College of Creative Arts. And now to introduce this wonderful new series, the Assistant Dean of the College of Creative Arts, Michaela Myers.
Thank you, Dean Jackson, and welcome to the second of 4 presentations in the Pandemic Proof Artist Series. My name is Michaela Myers, and I serve as the Assistant Dean of Student Artistic Achievement at West Virginia University's College of Creative Arts. This series is presented with the hope of giving our students and all of us ideas about the tools, skills, and creativity that artists, performers, and creative minds have used to keep practicing their art over these past 6 months. While this is a webinar format presentation, you can ask questions through the Q&A on your Zoom screen. We will try to get to as many of them as possible later in the evening. Tonight, we are so pleased to have rock violinist Adam DeGraff with us. And to help me host this evening, I'd like to introduce our West Virginia University trombone professor, Hakeem Bilal. Hi, Hakeem.
Hi, Michaela. It's good to see you, and it's good to see you all out there. You have a great night ahead of us.
Thanks, Hakeem. Hakeem is a master trombonist with experiences performing in all different styles, from playing orchestral repertoire with the Cleveland Orchestra to performing dance funk with his Pittsburgh-based band Beauty Slap. Hakeem and I will have questions for Adam later in the presentation. You heard some of the music from Adam's newest recording, Rock Violin Neat, at the beginning of this webinar. Adam pairs virtuoso violin skills with technological tenacity and a keen understanding of the music business, and he does it all from his farm in Lewisburg, West Virginia. Turn on your subwoofers. Adam, take it away.
hear me?
Wow, that was amazing, Adam. Thank you for sharing that. I I have to say, I noticed you were tapping your foot underneath, and I wanted you to explain some of that to the audience. What you were doing there? Can it take us on a virtual tour
Absolutely.
of your
Absolutely.
stage?
Let's see. Let's do this. So that's what it looks like from the audience side, at least. Um, this rig here is my tour rig. Anytime I play live now, this is what I'm using. And I'll give you an up close, but there's two parts to it. This is it's called a Helix, and it's a multi-effects unit that has incredible capabilities to route sound from here to there and there to here. And then this part over here is some analog gear that I still use, the boomerang looper and this polyphonic octave generator, which allows me to perform bass tones on the violin. So, and it's a system that, guitarists have been using for a while. And I thought, it would be turnkey, of course, for a violinist just to pick it up, but it absolutely was not. I had to kind of reinvent the wheel, but man, is it fun. It's just endless tinkering, and it's really a joyous experience to get to make music exactly the way you want to and have all the time in the world to figure it out so it's just right. And then, the only thing you have to worry about is that you can kind of keep up with yourself. So.
Adam, it's just amazing to hear you play, and we violinists, we know what kind of chops you have. It's amazing technical and musical facility that you use.
Thank you.
And you have expanded from your roots as a classically trained violinist into a whole other world of having your fingers in every single little musical and business pot out there. And I'm wondering if you can talk to us about just the diversity of skills and tools that you have and that our students and all of us should be thinking about cultivating right now when we have this time during this pandemic.
Absolutely. It's a great question. And, whether it's because of the pandemic or because you just want to diversify your skill sets, I think it's always a good idea. I mean, no investment counselor would ever say to put all of your eggs in one basket. So for a long time now, I've kind of dabbled in a variety of different aspects of the music business. And I've never thought I would be kind of so happy to have done so. And it's certainly, not for a very happy reason. But I'm going to start kind of in reverse, actually, and take you all on a little tour. One of the first things every musician should have is their own concert hall. And that is where I am right now. I'm going to show you around a bit. So I created a room called the Lee Street Listening Room, and it's in Lewisburg, West Virginia. There are many other awesome venues in West Virginia, of course, and even in Lewisburg, we have Carnegie Hall, which is like a 400-seat, one beautifully acoustic hall, elbow to elbow with chairs. And there are two other venues in town, Lewis Theater and GBT, Greenbrier Valley Theater, also both awesome venues. So I wasn't really looking to add another seated venue to town, but when the opportunity arose, I created this. And you'll see my manager, Abby, back there. This is a 199 person capacity room. And during the pandemic, I have changed it. I've lowered the number of seats to about 49. I always wanted to have a place that had couches. So you could have kind of comfy seating, place for your drink, place for some food. See up front now. It's quite a long room. The fire marshal, like I said, during a non-pandemic times, the before times, as my daughter refers to them as, it was 99 people could be in this room, and now we are at 45, 49 maybe places for people to sit. of course, there had to be some creativity to play shows. I cannot call them shows currently. Um, I call them musical demonstrations, and we have had three since, I guess, in the last month or so. We've done three of those shows. So that is so I'm at home base. I love having this room. It means I can come in all hours of night and practice till my heart is content, create, and experiment. Um, like I mentioned, though, the diversity is really important for me. My primary income came from touring, and a lot of people are like, "I'm so sorry that your touring is over now." It's not necessarily, and I just want to point out to musicians that public performances, of course, have been severely limited, but corporate entertainment is still a thing, as are private house concerts. And while I will admit that both of those are, say, serve a moneyed crowd, it's not a bad thing necessarily for a musician. It's sad that, like, the common person can't go out and see a show right now, but person's got to eat. So we, meaning my manager and I, have focused our attention on some shows here, but mostly corporate and private entertainment for people that need to have it right now. So it's been an adjustment for sure. But that's just one other revenue stream. Of course, there's always teaching, which I feel is not just something that I want to do, and I do want to do it, but there's also the I think, like, almost a mandate for musicians. If you are doing something um, cool, unique, whatnot, or even if it's meat and potatoes like classical music, we have a job to pass that on to future generations. So teaching is awesome, and it's also a great way to stay active musically. Of course, writing music, which I do a lot, and recording is a great way to also add to that revenue stream. So even though people complain a lot, like Spotify doesn't pay that much, and sometimes Spotify doesn't pay what it should, and there's a lot of people that are complaining about that, and I'm definitely one of them. But at the same time, it's nice to get that check every month. I spent a year recording this kind of deluxe double album that I crowdfunded, and now that it's out there, it's a wonderful thing to I wake up in the morning and hundreds and hundreds of people have listened to it, which is a nice thing. Adds up at the end of the month. And then maybe an kind of seen side of that is licensing your music, and I definitely get a lot of requests for that. I today licensed one of my tracks for a podcast. That's a new area that people are looking to have music. Of course, there's always television, film, video games, that kind of thing. So and sometimes you need management to do those things, and sometimes you don't. Really just need to get your music out there the best that you can. But that is another way that I have diversified. And then lastly, this room serves multiple purposes, and having a home base is really awesome. So one, it's storage for my gear, and I do end up having quite a bit of gear. I'll talk about my specific tour rig and what I have done with that in a minute, but I have a recording studio in the corner right here. It doesn't look like much from here, but those boxes, those three tour boxes, are full of everything I need to record a professional level recording right here in my studio. And there are definitely things that your average, even tech savvy musician cannot do, but you'll find that you can do most of it yourself, especially the expensive part, which is tracking. So if you have a basic knowledge of how to track yourself, you are saving hours and hours outside of the recording studio. In fact, so much so that this room, which I pay rent for every month, ended up being less to occupy this room for 3 years than it would have been for me to go into a recording studio and record those two out, the double length album that I just put out. So really super glad that I have this place. I also teach here. I do my own writing and my practice. I call it practice or rehearsal. Um, it's practice when it's just me, and when my looper is with me, it's rehearsal, I suppose. But I need to be able to gain some perspective as to what my music is sounding like at distance. So I will oftentimes have my speaker system up there on the stage, and then I'll cable out my rig into the middle of the room, 30, 40 feet back, so I can actually hear what things sound like when they start mixing themselves. And then, of course, it gives me a chance to deal with like emergencies. Like, what if something doesn't work? And I figure out how to deal with that. Uh, Literally, every time you pick up a piece of gear, something moves and jiggles and jostles. So you have to deal with those calamitous events too. So, and then the last thing is I use this room to serve my community. So it's not uncommon for me to project up on the wall, like I'm part of a jujitsu team here in town. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So when we're watching matches, or when my son was competing professionally, we put the video up on the wall. The whole team came and watched. And my daughter had a birthday party in this room, and a bunch of her friends came over and they watched a movie. And we've held nonpartisan political events here where candidates are allowed to kind of speak their mind and share with the community. And we've had poetry readings. And then I love when my touring friends come through town and they are looking for have a spare night on the road. And we're always, all of us touring folks are always looking for that night to be filled. And even if it doesn't pay great, you're on the road, you're playing, you're making new friends and fans, and it this room has just served so many purposes for me. So I love having it. And since a lot of folks that are listening are in West Virginia, you'll have to check it out. I have a Facebook page, Lee Street Listening Room by Adam DeGraff, and I announce stuff that's coming here. So definitely check that out.
Wow, you have created your own space to where you can create your own content, and that's a beautiful thing. Um, in in the past years, you've had videos that have amassed millions of views at this point. What are some ways that you have found, creative ways that you found to get your content seen out there? I remember in your earlier class with the students, you mentioned that you had a retweet, from a friend, and that was something very influential in getting you some exposure. But what since then, other than that, or other types of creative ways that you found to get your art out there?
Absolutely. I notice pretty much without exception that when I'm performing, all other good things start happening. So playing lots and lots of shows is really the answer. I like to I'll actually bring this up because whether it's violinists or other musicians or even other creatives, it's really important to develop your what I call anchor gigs. Um, Anchor gigs are usually they pay really well and they make the trip kind of financially feasible. Um, and then the fill-in gigs in between, no lesser in terms of performance quality and what you give to them, but they book out months ahead of time versus years ahead of time. So the tour that I just wrapped up before the pandemic began, we were out west January, February, pretty much all of California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Texas, Arizona, etc., New Mexico. Those were all booked a long time ago. And then filling in those in between dates, like when I was driving from Nashville to New Mexico, I was like, where can I stop? And picked up a gig in Austin and stuff like that. So yeah, always looking to augment the kind of like, I don't want to say more serious, but they definitely they raise grant money. They have a board of directors, and it takes a little bit longer for those kind of large machines to work. And now I've honestly talked long enough that I forgot the rest of your questions. So I think you'll have to refresh me there.
That's all good. You're giving gold. I was saying, what are some creative ways that you've found to get your content, whether it's videos or music, just get it out into the
Right. Okay. So, like, it used to be that Facebook, YouTube, um, were all about getting your content out there. In fact, I have all the metrics. I've been following this for over a decade now. Um, Either all of the sudden, YouTube watchers stopped liking my stuff, or I didn't do what I needed to on YouTube and pay for my stuff to be seen, because my numbers, which were literally consistent day to day, it was like 1,000 new people every day saw my Sweet Child of Mine video. And then all of a sudden it dropped to like 500 or 400 or 300. And I really don't feel like it ran out. I could be wrong, but coincidentally, around the same time, YouTube was like, hey, do you want us to keep showing that to people? You want it to rank high? And all you have to do is pay us. And of course, Facebook is famous for that also. Now, luckily, I started in on Facebook early enough that they weren't doing that at the time, and I was putting up content, and I, amassed enough like followers to get their little, it's like a blue verified check or something like that. And that blue verified check helped somehow. I'm not really sure. It was all fine and all good. And my followers were growing on a regular basis, which allows me to communicate what I'm doing, where I'm playing, how you can access my stuff. But then Facebook started doing the same thing, and Instagram started doing the same thing. I came to Instagram late, so I never really, did I would never really focused there. It's more of a personal page for me, but those platforms have definitely changed. And I will say that, it used to be that I was sending CDs out every week. People wanted a CD. Now they don't want them anymore. They're buying them, or they're listening to them on Apple Music or YouTube Music or Spotify. And again, I'm happy to be getting that check, and it's nice because it's definitely reaching people that maybe it wouldn't have before. But it's a little disheartening when you see the balance sheet come in, and you're like, you see all these listens, and my goodness, like, you're making like 1,000th of a cent or 100th of a cent every time, and it's definitely hard to swallow. So, um, what I've realized is really for me, getting my music out there really means live performance. And fortunately for me, I love performing live. It is what I like to do. So, and that is for me also where the money is, the enjoyment is. I love also traveling. Michaela said, I do things from my farm here in Lewisburg, and it's true. I love Lewisburg, West Virginia. I have a small permaculture, organic dairy with my family, and we raise a lot of our own food. And I love it, and I love being here, but I also love being on the road, and I love, dining out at incredible restaurants while I'm out and about and meeting new people and playing with, playing at these incredible concert halls all over the country. And uh, so, yeah, live performance is still where it's at for me. So I definitely miss the, um, like, again, I think I said it earlier, like playing for the common person is what it's all about. I love going to a small town. We were in Oroville, California, uh, for instance. I think about it a lot because there was such a cool concert hall there, and this old, really old concert hall with this beautiful refurbished neon um, marquee. And you roll into town, and your name is in lights, and everybody's so excited. They don't see a ton of these things, and they fill the place up that night, and you get to play for everybody. Um, and then on the flip side of that concert, that was so fun. You get to meet all these people and play in this fabulous historic venue. Then you put on 100 new followers, 500 new followers. You see your numbers get a bump very organically at this point. But yeah, none of those companies are really doing us any favor anymore.
Adam, we're all really missing performing for live audiences right now. It's a hard time.
It is.
And I remember I had texted you sort of at the beginning of the summer about a student, and I said, how are things going? And I got this text. I was expecting, oh, it's really terrible. And I got this text back, things are great. I'm
Okay.
still performing. And that's actually, I have to thank you. That's actually where the idea of this pandemic proof artist series came
Oh,
from.
cool.
And Adam is pandemic proof. Okay.
Ah,
So thank you for that. And also it was just really wonderful to be hearing about, even though we're missing the performing for live audiences, all the different other tools that you've been developing along the way that have enabled you to just to keep on performing and being a creative artist. And last week we got to hear from Jad Abumrad from Radiolab.
sure.
He was talking about this this idea of gut churn and these sort of moments in life when you're, as he described it, in the German forest and great despair and you don't know your way out. And I want to just draw a line from that to tonight, because you obviously had this moment where you were on a path of sort of least resistance for you, in that you went to Rice University, you're a brilliant violinist, you were a concert master out in Richmond, and everything was lining up just like it's supposed to. And
Right.
something happened for you that made you change that path. And I wonder if you could tell us about that, and also talk to us about, when do you listen to that little voice that says, try this other thing? And when is that maybe not a great idea?
Mm. I'll start with that. It's not a great idea when you're reacting out of fear, in my experience. Of course, all this is in my experience. Um, it is a great idea when you're centered and your gut is telling you something. And um, everybody responds differently to this kind of mm, like, should I, shouldn't I? Um, and, you know, jumping off from the orchestra job that I had, which was reliable, um, paid extremely well, principal position. It was, funneling me into larger orchestra principal positions. Um, but actually leaving that, which happened for a couple reasons that I won't necessarily get into right now. But there was a guy studying our orchestra who knew a lot. He was a professor at Harvard, and he said to me, what are you doing here? You're creative and you're entrepreneurial. You're gonna hate your job. You're gonna hate your life. And I just kind of listened and took it pretty seriously early on. But I started developing a little bit of a faith and belief that maybe there was more out there. Maybe there was something different. So um, even when I was in the orchestra, though, I was always tinkering and trying different things, because I really think the death of all of us is when we stop growing and stop learning. So I lived in Goochland, Virginia, which is halfway between Richmond and Charlottesville. My wife was doing some work at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. I was playing in the Richmond Symphony, and it was the first time I ever lived in the country. So we had our first garden, and I did stuff that I didn't normally do. Just I was taking walks in the woods, because we lived on next to a guy that had 1,000 acres of woods, and we became friends with our neighbors. And I'll never forget the day that I always dabbled in other kinds of music, but my my neighbor came over and was like, "Would you want to play with our band?" And you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm a Jewish kid from Chicago, and he's like, "Yeah, we've got this gospel group. It's called the Friends of Jesus, and we would love for you to join us." And I did. I played in the Friends of Jesus. I think I was the first Jewish member of the Friends of Jesus. It was such an incredible experience for me, playing with a bunch of self-taught gospel style, kind of bluegrass gospel style musicians. None of them were professionals. They all had other jobs, and it was this amazing experience for me. And I'm always just looking for other ways, other things to do with my music, and things like that. Like, it was kind of a risk. Like, I didn't know those tunes, but I learned them really fast, and They weren't super complex, but these guys played with heart and they sang with heart. And, they were not lesser musicians than I played with every night in the symphony. So, um, yeah, so having kind of that faith that, and I'm not religious either, by the way. So when I say faith, I just mean like listening to that inner voice and really figuring it out. When it's true and when it's fear has been really helpful for me. Um, you also mentioned the conversation at the beginning of the summer, and yeah, I mean, I definitely am gonna always keep working, and I'm always looking for different ways of doing it. Whether I'm in my studio and writing music, or gifting somebody with a concert, or boy, there was a restaurant that opened here and had a big birthday in Lewisburg, the French Goat, one of my favorite places to eat here. Very fine food. They had this beautiful outdoor garden, and they were like, will you do a show? And I did. A lot of these things, you have to kind of use your own best judgment, um, based on how you advertise them and things like that. It was a birthday party, not a concert. And when I play shows here in my listening room, they're musical demonstrations, uh, or peaceful demonstrations of music and uh, assembly. Uh, and I joked earlier with the students that the governor lives 2 blocks away from me here, and so I'm always very respectful. I called the local police before I had the concert here, and told them that I was having this peaceful demonstration of music, and they're like, "Is there anything we can do to help?" And I was just like, what a great town, what a great place. So there's always a way to make it work, and I am most times pretty upbeat about finding that way, and just kind of try to keep myself moving and growing and looking for that silver lining if the storm clouds are amassing.
Great. I want to take a little bit of a pivot. I have a question that might strike a little bit of a nerve because it talks a little bit about our troubles in performing. But as a creative, you spent a lot of time working on a specific set. Working with your electronics for everything to work and go according to plan. And you have a travel rig that you use when you're touring. Can you elaborate a little bit on the relationship between if something goes wrong, what contingencies you have in place, what
Sure.
what happens,
Well, I will say everything happens. Any sound professional will tell you that it's live sound is like being at war in the trenches, and you have your bag and you have your cables. And um, for a while, I teach violin, I teach recording engineering, and I teach tech for musicians. And if you take my class, um, I a weekly lesson or something like that, and you end up with a problem at your concert, you call me and I walk you through some stuff like that. If you don't, I had this on my website for a while. I had this. If you're on stage with Dave Matthews and your violin isn't working or your rig isn't working, you know, it was $1,000, and you click on it and you pay the $1,000, and I guarantee I can fix your problem or you get your money back, and you get my phone number, and no matter the time of day, I'll take your call. And I did sell that one time, and I won't say who or when, but yeah, I had a colleague say, I'm in trouble and they are waiting on me right now. And I have a kind of a list in my head that I've built up of things that can go wrong because they have gone wrong. And that is how you learn how to do this. Hopefully, you break all of the weak links in your studio by packing up and unpacking, and by really getting to know your gear, understanding the different cables and what can go wrong with them, and always having backups for those things. So, but yeah, man, I've had some absolute doozies. I was on stage with Dragonette in New York City at was it Town Hall or some big venue in New York City. Thousands of people in the audience, and I was opening, like, the first thing was going to be this violin thing, and I go to draw my bow across the string, and nothing. I mean, just sound under my ear, nothing to the hall, and people are looking at me and like, "What? What? Is it the batteries?" Well, luckily their sound engineer was extremely experienced. I'm like, "I changed my because we had already sound checked. Everything sounded great. What changes did you make? I even put fresh batteries in." He goes, put new batteries in. And I'm like, I just put fresh batteries in. He's like, put new batteries in. And I did, and it worked. And only a sound engineer would understand that sometimes you get a dud battery. I didn't even think to check for that. Now, anytime I make a change, I go for, I make a little quick test before I walk off stage, or let the audience in. Another time I had, it was this, my son is a professional magician, and he's a kid, and we're at this giant magic conference, and there's thousands of people sitting in this audience, and I had offered as a gift to the presenter there to open the show. And I had my rig on stage, and I know this rig backwards and forwards. And I get out, and my looper isn't working. And I'm like, now that is crazy. I've never had that happen before. And to make a long story short, what I figured out really quickly is they had moved my gear slightly during one of the other sound checks for one of the magicians that was presented that evening, and literally one button got pushed. Now, it was really high pressure. It was all these people watching me, my kid sitting out in the audience, and I'm like failing miserably. And I'm like, well, and I played like I did at the beginning, and I expect my loop to take off, and nothing. I look like a total idiot. I'm like, well, now that I have a headset mic also, and I'm like, well, that was not supposed to happen. And of course, they all crack up. So I use comedy over the next couple minutes. I look down, I squat down at my rig, and I turn around. I make a joke. I'm like, well, this is my back. They laugh again, and I'm tweaking the knobs, and I'm like, you wonder what could happen with something like this. And fortunately, I have kind of like the mentality, a high pressure mentality to fix it quickly, kind of reset it. And I kind of did that in a crafty little way, and I noticed it worked. Now, I could get back up all sweaty and stressed and flushed, or the guy in the back of the curtain's like, "Are you okay? Do we need to put something else on? They're all waiting for you." And I'm like, I just got to stay calm and cool. And so I stood up and I said, "Hey, you mind if I try this again?" And they're like, kind of lukewarm applause. I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I walk off stage, and the presenter is back there wide-eyed and says to me like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "You just introduced me 3 minutes ago. I want you to go out and do the exact same introduction." And he goes out and he does the exact same introduction, and I go out right after him and do the exact same, "Thank you so much for being here tonight. I feel like I've done this before." And then I just start playing, and using comedy to diffuse a situation like that. And how I thought of that stuff on the spot, I don't know, but it's just like, you have to keep your audience going. It's entertainment one way or the other. Like the show must go on kind of thing. It's more than that. You got to keep your audience always engaged, through thick and thin. So yeah, failures galore. Get used to it and learn how to, as you said, Hakeem, pivot on the spot, always looking for the best possible way that this, tragedy or calamity could not just resolve, but become a positive. In fact, for the entire rest of the evening, people were coming up to me. They're like, "Was that on purpose?" And, I laughed at that because it absolutely was not on purpose. And it was horrifying to have that happen right in front of this giant audience of performers.
Adam, I think we're just all living that moment right with you, and the PTSD that one carries with them forevermore. But as you said, the show must go on.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
sure. I want to remind our audience that they can put questions in the Q&A, and we're going to now shift to some questions from our students here at WVU. And first want to introduce Sandra Morales, who is a doctoral violinist from Bogota, Colombia. And Sandra, you can turn your video on. Hi, Sandra, and go ahead and ask a question to Adam.
Hello.
Hi, Adam, and hi, Dr. Myers. Thank you for sharing those experiences with us.
Absolutely.
I was wondering when you mentioned about diversity and also giving a message to future generation. I was wondering how much do you think that those thoughts come about that shift that you did between being in the classical world and also being in the popular world. And I raised this question just like at the risk of being sounding too romantic maybe, but just taking into consideration everything that is happening worldwide about racial, social, and political issues. Do you think that music has to have an active role to engage those problems? Like, how do you think that musicians, what can we do for that?
That's a great question. I think that if we try to be something that we are not, if we try to be overtly inspirational for the sake of inspiring, or um, like if we try to pretend like I'm gonna only play music of minority composers or something like that right now, you know, I like all music, and I'm going to play the music that speaks to me, and then I'm going to find a way to share that with people. And I think that any like genuine sharing, any sort of uh, anything that comes from your heart, whether it's, you know, music by old white dead composers, as we often joke, or, you know, modern minority composer, it's still like it speaks. That music and that creativity and that art speaks. I remember a great story about Yasha Heifetz, who was playing in Israel, and of course he was Jewish, and he was playing the Strauss violin sonata. And Strauss, of course, was a known anti-Semite. And I often thought about that as a student, kind of growing up after I had heard that story, and I was thinking, like, yeah, is that okay that he did that? And I think he got booed off stage, if I remember correctly. They threw tomatoes. Um, but to me, like, did did Strauss? I mean, obviously, anti-Semitism not okay. I'm a Jewish guy. I'm not happy about that. But did he not feel love and fear and excitement and hate and all of the things that we all probably have some of those inside of us? So I think that was a pretty overt political statement by Heifetz. Um, but yeah, as I think our job is to be who we are, the best version of who we are, and to bring art to life, especially, of course, music is dead without us. I know recordings, of course, but like, but they're, you know, live performance, you need, it's a on a timeline. It is in the present moment, and it's the only art form that I can think of that is in the present moment. So um, yeah, anyway, that gives you a little bit of idea on that side. And then you asked about the diversity also. I don't just mean diversity, you know, racially, but I just mean being a diverse person in your own self. So having multiple avenues of musical interest, but also personal interest. So one of the things I ask prospective students is, what else do you do? And they're like, well, I play classical. I also play a little jazz, and I like to write music. And sometimes I like to teach. And I'm like, yeah, but what else do you do? What makes you a whole person? And tell me about some of those things and some of those passions so that I can get to know you. And frankly, music is so hard to teach literally that you oftentimes have to teach by analogy, right? So, you know, when I'm working with somebody on their bow arm, you know, I'll talk about, like, if they're a foodie, I'll say something like, think of like the darkest, richest hot fudge, and you need to pull your bow through that hot fudge, and it's a struggle to get through that hot fudge. Or, you know, if they're, you know, an outdoors person, you know, I can access, you know, some of their outdoors experiences to kind of, by analogy, help them think about their music in a non-literal way, an analogous way. And diverse people make awesome musicians because we have deeper things to draw on. And I'll take that one step further. I told the students earlier today, and I mentioned it to you already, I'm obsessed with Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm not good at it. I am like, a beginning intermediate at this point. Very, very, like I'm going to go with like book 3 Suzuki to give my violinist friends an idea. So I past Twinkle. I understand how to do, some basic stuff, but, you know, suck, 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 success was a wonderful, inspiring quote, I think by Joel Salatin, that I heard not too long ago. And sucking at Brazilian Jiu Jitsu has helped me be a better musician, a better teacher, a more, um, you know, a more caring individual, because, when you get good at an instrument or get good at something, you kind of like, ooh, I'm pretty darn good at this. Well, yeah, I've been doing it for 42 years. I should be decent at it at this point. What about the things you stink at? And that stuff, for me, is what makes, hopefully, my music more accessible. And I'm going to go with the word better, because I think better, accessible is better.
Great answer, and thank you, Sandra, for that question. Moving on to our next question from a student, we have Sean Elliott, who is a DMA violinist here at WVU. Sean, go ahead and show us your screen and unmute yourself.
Hey, Sean.
Hi, it's nice to see you again.
You too.
Thank you also for being here, for sharing with us your expertise and the comfort from your own studio, and being able to show us your space and how you set up your gear and what you do. It's very fascinating to all of us.
Pleasure.
I'm sure. So my question comes from something you dabbled in a little bit on our workshop from earlier today, and also this evening, about being in a professional orchestra, first off, and having a colleague of yours, point out to you, maybe your personality isn't quite suited to this career, and how that sort of influence shaped your ideas for what was possible for you to come, and what exactly was it that flipped the switch, so to say, and sort of made you decide this is now the trajectory I'm going to go on. And maybe another question, if you could also, once in that field, and once you're on that stage and sort of faced with the unknown, what are some sort of strategies, besides comedy, that you can utilize when you're in a situation where you don't really know what to do, but you have to sort of make it up as you go?
Sure.
So.
To answer the second question first, I think that honesty on stage is it's an attractive quality. Just like ego on stage is a very unattractive quality. When somebody talks about how great they are, you really can't do that. In fact, one of my professors once said, that's why you have a manager, because no one sounds good saying, I am really, really good. That's the manager's job. You are a humble creature on stage, giving of yourself and only giving of yourself. So, being honest, like if something goes wrong, saying, well, that wasn't supposed to happen. And a lot of times, like if you're not a humorous person, just being honest is fun sometimes. And I can't think of a person who hasn't experienced something like that. You might even practice something like that, like coming up with something extemporaneously, just right off the cuff. Like, God, usually when this happens in my dreams, I'm naked too. I'm glad this isn't that dream. You know what I mean? Like something funny that, I mean, I use humor, but that's who I am. Okay. I'm always looking to make people laugh. I'm always trying to find the silliest, funniest thing and make my family or my kids or my manager or I just want people to laugh, because I think laughter is so real. Now, that's who I am though. So I'm not actually putting on airs for that. But if if you want to get up and tell a story, tell a story. Can I tell you a story right now? We're waiting for the electricity to come back on, and I'm going to tell you a story. It could be the best thing that ever happened to you. Okay. Now, to go back a moment, I spoke earlier today about this, about how one of the things we don't generally do enough as professional musicians is think about what we do in relation to we're serving a crowd. We think of fans that are there to see us, or patrons and stuff like that, but it's a service industry. Okay. And I'm gonna tell you something. I'll tell this group something I've never told anybody before, but there was a straw that broke the camel's back at my job in the Richmond Symphony, and it was this. It was the end of the season. I think it was like our last Masterworks concert, which we do 3 times, and this is 18, maybe 20 years ago at this point. And there was a subscription season ticket holder couple that always sat maybe 6 or 8 rows back, and I was sitting right up there, and I saw them all the time, smiled, was pleasant to them, but we weren't allowed to talk to the people off stage. It was in the contract, and I just didn't even think about it. But at the end of the show, I was packing up my music, and I looked down and they were there, and I said, "Hey, excuse me, I just wanted to thank you guys. I've seen you in these same seats, 60 times, over the last few years. I just wanted to thank you for coming and for being here and supporting the orchestra. And it's really nice to have you guys." And they came up, and I shook their hands, and I kind of sat with my feet dangling off the edge of the stage. And we were talking about my violin, and I just thought it was a nice thing. I was, a representative of the orchestra. And the next day in my box, I had a formal reprimand from the orchestra telling me that I broke contract, and this was my first warning. And I was so furious about that. I just was so furious that they couldn't see that I was doing something that A, was good for the orchestra, B, was a genuine appreciation of patrons who've been coming over and over. And to me, that it just shows a real short-sightedness. Now I get it. Like, you can't have 90 musicians with their feet dangling off the edge of the stage. But can we look past that? And to me, it just showed me that corporate mentality was really, and I was tired of negotiations, and I was tired of all of the rigidity that went on. God forbid you should show up 5 minutes late because your car broke down. Do we really need to all have heart attacks when that happens? Are we not human? And it happens to everybody. Can't we? So I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And in combination with the recommendation of the dude who was studying us, I just decided, I said, it's time for me to go, and time for me to do something more solo. And again, that's my personality type. Some people love the confinement, or maybe I shouldn't use that word, maybe a more positive word, but love the structure of an orchestra. They don't have to do anything. Their chair is in place. They have to make sure their instrument has fresh strings on it, and that they practice their part. Awesome. If that's who you are, go for it. Good for you. That definitely was not who I was, and I was starting to see it, and I'm really glad I saw it in my 20s instead of now, because retooling, I think you said, or retraining or whatnot, that was scary. I spent from high school all through college working towards becoming a first chair orchestral musician. That was my dream. And then to realize when I got there, this is not the way I thought it was going to be. It took some faith to step off that train.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question.
Adam, thanks for the great stories tonight, and the sheer honesty. It's wonderful to hear this.
It'll probably get me in trouble, but it's okay.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. What the straw that broke the camel's back for me was I really wanted to wear open-toed shoes, and I wasn't allowed to. So
Hey,
now I can.
Free the toes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one more question from a student, and this is from Dalton Kendig, who is an undergraduate music education major, who is originally from Hedgesville, West Virginia. So Dalton, you can go ahead. Oh, you're right outside the CAC. We can see the sculpture behind you.
Yes, I'm in the Knapp Sculpture Garden right now. You can see the art museum behind me. It was just a really nice night. So my question for you, so you mentioned how you're supposed to have a more well-rounded kind of interest. So the things that you do outside of music relate to what you do in music. I think that's what you said. So what are the things that you do outside of music, outside of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that kind of help to add to your musicality and all your playing and everything? What do you do outside of that? Do you have like any other hobbies or any cool things?
Sure. So my days, I spend a lot of time with my family. I've got 2 kids, a 17-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. And my wife and I homeschool, kind of. It's more like unschooling with them. They're both really bright kids. So we spend a ton of time being with them, both in the house, and we do a lot of cooking. And then outside of the house on our little farm. So today we milked 4 cows together. We stacked some firewood for the winter. I always kind of wanted to live a life that was in harmony kind of with nature, and the natural world. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I have an everyday thing that I try to do, and that is I feel really kind of just blessed in my life. I've got so many great friends. I always try to help somebody in a non like egotistical way. I don't like post about it, but I'm always looking for a way to help somebody. So it's not uncommon for a friend to maybe they post something on the social medias that they're having a hard day, and a lot of times I'll send them a private message like, "Hey, is there anything I can do for you?" And I find myself in some really unique situations because of that. And you can only do what you can do. And I never think of any of these things as a should, because again, we can only do what we can do. So but yeah, finding a uh, I'll rephrase, because I told this to a friend the other day. There were 2 things when I was in college that I wanted from my life. And like, I feel like I've always been kind of a quality of life junkie. Um, but those 2 things were this: I wanted not to have to wake up to an alarm. I don't like waking up early. I've never been a morning person. And so I didn't want to wake up to an alarm. And the second thing um, was that I didn't want to have to live for vacations. I didn't want to be that family that does something fun 1 or 2 weeks a year. I wanted to be in a daily lifestyle where I didn't want to go away on a vacation. I wanted to love my everyday life so much that I didn't take vacations. And I just want to tell you, I'm batting 1,000 on that. I'm 2 for 2. I'm really excited because I never wake up to an alarm. Um, and I live a life of every day that just feels fun and rich and wonderful. And music is just a part of it. I think my music maybe is better because of it, but I I love my everyday. So thank you for the question.
Adam, we have a question from Emily Lair in the audience, and I have to give some props to Emily Lair because I know that she just signed to a recording contract tonight. So she's a music therapy student at WVU, and she's also a singer-songwriter. And so her question comes to you from that context. And her question is, do you have advice on preparing to go into the studio for an improv session?
um, you know, you get better at improving when you improv a lot. So, in a sense, there is no preparation. Um, I will say that it's really important when you're improvising not to try to do something you did last time, and to try not to do something you did last time. And you have to sit with that for a second, maybe. But I found while I was on the road, and I do a ton of improv. I would say about 60% of my show is improvised. So I have a general structure, but then about 60% of what gets filled in is none of it's written down. So it's going to change. And I felt at the beginning of my tour and my end of my tour, I kind of just did what I thought was the same thing every night. It came from the same place every night, which was this like well up of creativity that I felt. And so it kind of felt the same. And then I would record the shows, and man, everyone was really different. But I didn't, on the nights that I'm like, I think I did this lick last night, I'm going to do something different tonight. It always kind of sounded forced. So my advice and the way I teach my students to improv is to like listen and feel and give yourself the space to do that. It's a really tricky thing sometimes for musicians because we feel like, we should be paid by the note, and you're like, I got to play more notes. But space in between those notes is so important. And taking the time that might feel like, an immense amount of time to you isn't an immense amount of time for the audience. Your brain is firing, at like the speed of light. You have plenty of time. Everything for you is like slow motion when you're on stage. You know exactly what you're doing. They have no idea what you're doing. So yeah, going into the studio, I would get comfortable. I'd make sure the lighting felt good. I would make sure that I imagined doing that thing many, many times before I did it for real. And then you have to decide when you go in the studio if it feels right to you, to just kind of let go of time, because there's always, when I'm in a studio, I'm always kind of like on the clock. Now, I have chosen not to sign with a label. I wanted to stay independent. And sometimes when you're with a label, that's great. They might give you a certain number of sessions. That can feel a little constricting sometimes, but if you're on your own, like I am, it kind of feels even worse because I'm like, gosh, we're sitting here talking right now. I just paid $300 an hour for this discussion. Yikes. So for me, I already mentioned I, have my own recording studio set up over there, so I am not on the clock. And every take I do is full of improv, and I just take a lot of them and then mix them together later and see how it all turns out. So it's a really good question, and congratulations on signing with the label. I hope you feel very, very supported by your label, because that's their job, is to support you so that you can be the artist that you are and want to be, without the headache of all the other stuff that comes along with that on your own.
Great, thank you. I have one more question from the Q&A before we move forward. This also comes from Emily, and this is, how do you implement boundaries in your life between work and rest? You seem pretty good at this, but when your passion is work, I found it extremely difficult to put it away to eat, sleep, or just rest.
Yeah, I'm not real good at that. I'm a pretty obsessive person. But then I also notice sometimes that I don't want to do anything some days. You gotta, when it's kind of like feast or famine in this business. And I don't mean that necessarily just in the monetary or way. Like, yeah, like it's like I've just been at it long enough now where I know, like, if I'm having a lazy day, I'm just gonna like enjoy that lazy. Just put it off. It'll be fine. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But that comes back to one of the original questions, right? About like being in tune with yourself and knowing where that stuff comes from. Is it, I think it was Michaela that said that, how do you know, like, when it's coming from the right place? Like, or, when you make that choice, like, it's scary, right? Don't act out of fear. It's never going to lead you to a good place. And at the same time, don't act out of ego, because that also is not going to lead you to a good place. So there are some days where all I want to do is make music, and I do. And I have a deal with my family. I tell them, I'm like, they even said, stop telling us when you're going to come home, because what'll happen, I'll say, I'll be home at midnight, and 2 a.m. rolls around, and I'm like, oof, I'm so sorry. They're like, we know you're not good, so don't even tell us. Just say, I'm going to the studio. I'll see you tomorrow. And I do now. So that's what I say at this point. So yeah, if you're having trouble, like, I don't want to lead you, like, if you're truly having problems eating or sleeping, or resting, if it becomes like, medically dangerous, yeah, maybe look at that. But for me, it never has been. So I've always kind of been okay with just giving myself the latitude to, take the time I need when I need it, and be a lazy sloth when I want to be a lazy sloth, because God knows I work hard enough when I work hard. So I hope that is a helpful answer.
That's so helpful, Adam. And I want to thank you, and all of us want to thank you for the time that you spent with us this evening. It's been just wonderful. And we can't let you go without asking you to play us just one more tune.
Happy to.
All right. Take it away, Adam.
Set back up and do it there. Plug back in just in case. All right, so I am going to play, let's see, we'll do one more for the evening. And I actually wasn't planning on playing this one, but I think I will. It ends kind of chill. And the reason I'm going to play this one is because so many of the questions were about the multiple styles of music and the inspirations that I feel, and the people that have kind of helped me or that I help in life. And I just wanted to say this one is it's dedicated to Joe Golan. Joe was the principal second violin at the Chicago Symphony. He, when I was growing up in Chicago, he was not my primary teacher for very long, but in an interim phase, he kind of took me under his wing. And when I was talking with him about music, he always asked me the same question. He said, well, what are you? And I'm like, I'm a violinist. He's like, no, you're a musician. And Joe would take me places. I would go downtown to Orchestra Hall for my lessons, and he would take me to these blues clubs in Chicago. And then he would sometimes take me to these klezmer joints in Chicago. And there was always a teaching moment with Joe, such a generous soul. He said, what do you notice about these two styles of music? And I think hard on that one. I said, they're the same. And he's like, how are they the same? And obviously blues and klezmer sound different, but there is something similar. And it was like that pathos that it came from, like this like heart-wrenching sound. And he just got me thinking about music differently. And of course, he was a classical musician, and he improv'd and was definitely an early inspiration. So this one has a little bit of classical, a little bit of blues, a little bit of klezmer. I call it klezmer-ish. Hope you like it. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for tuning in. And I wish you all well. If anybody has questions, follow-up questions from the discussion we had earlier today about some of the books that I recommended, I'm really easy to find. I'm at adamviolin.com, and adam@violin.com is my email. So hit me up with questions, comments, and if you need any help tech-wise or music-wise, always love helping my fellow musicians. Thanks so much. Good night.